Hello, hello, hello. I am here with a quick little artwork tutorial on splitting up your artwork. So say you have artwork that's bigger than 8.5 by 11 and you want to split it up onto multiple artboards. I'm just showing a really quick and easy way to do it. So I'm first going to get my artwork and I'm just going to go to our website and go to resources, free artwork, and I'm going to be using our wildflowers design. And then you just scroll down and you either can download the PDF or the SVG. And if you click the link, it'll open up in a new window, and then I'm just going to right click and save to my desktop. So that will be my SVG file is now on my desktop. The next thing I'm going to do is go to the design program I'm going to use, and that is just Gravit Designer. So if you just go to their website, designer.io/en, I guess, and click Start Now, right away you are in the design program. You don't have to download anything, you don't have to do anything. So super easy, and this is really good for like basic, just resizing artwork or SVGs that you download if you are purchasing stuff like that. It's really great for that kind of thing. So I'm just going to pick my paper size, and I always choose my paper size to be the size of the paper I'm printing on, not the size of my design that I want, but the size I'm actually going to be printing on. So in this case, I'm going to be printing on 8.5 by 11. All right, so then I'm going to open my artwork. So I'm just going to say open local file, and I'm going to go to my field of wildflowers design. And I'm only going to be using this part today, so I'm just going to select the part that I want by just dragging over it like that. And then you can either use your hotkeys, Control-C, or you can go to Edit, Copy. And then up in the right-hand corner here, these are going to be your different artboards. So I don't need the Field of Wildflowers artboard anymore. I'm going to be working on the one that I originally set up. I always, whenever I'm about to print new artwork, I always start from scratch and set up my own artboard rather than, because when you open, a file that you download, say you bought an SVG file or something like that, when you open that file, you have no idea how that person set up that artboard. It could be set up as a 5 inches by 6 inches. It could be set up as 10 inches by 20 inches. You have no idea. So that's why whenever I'm printing artwork, I always start with a fresh document that I know I set up and it's the size that I want. So I'm just going to paste my artwork onto my artboard now, and I can either do Control-V with the hotkeys, or you can go to Edit, Paste, and now there's my design. So I already know the sign that I'm putting this on. It's the metal sign that I use for everything, for all my holiday decor. I'm swapping out my Valentine's Day one that I had on there, and I'm going to be putting on this wildflower one. I think I'm going to do a layered look with this quote over the top of the flowers. I think I'm going to see how that looks. So I already know the size. I want it to be about 13 inches wide, and I know it can't be taller than 5 inches. I already measured my sign, so I know that. So all I'm going to do is group this to make sure it's just going to act as one piece of artwork. All I did to group it was select and group. So now I know that when I scale it or resize it, it'll do all the artwork proportionally together. And then to size it, I'm just going to use my inspector window over here on the right. And right here you can see size. It says position, size. So if you click these two little loopy buttons in the middle, that will lock your ratio. So if you adjust the width, it'll automatically adjust the height proportionately. So I want this to be 13 inches wide. All right, so now I know my artwork is the size I want it to be, and if I look at the height here, it's 4.3, so that is perfect for my sign. I just know it can't be higher than 5. So in proportion, this should look great on my sign. I'm going to change my artboard right now. It is, portrait mode. I'm just going to unclick off of my artwork, and then over here again in my inspector window where it says page size US letter, if I just click that rotate canvas, now it'll put my canvas in in landscape mode instead of portrait mode. So now it's horizontal instead of vertical. And then if you look up over here, you have a few more tools, and those are going to be your zoom tools and your hand tool. Your hand tool just drags around your artboard, so that looks great. And then if you want to zoom into different, if you want to zoom in a little bit, you can, or zoom out. All right, so obviously, as we can see here, my artwork is too big for my paper. So how you treat this, every artwork is going to be different with how you print this. So I want to print this on 2 8.5 by 11 sheets. I could just simply, cut this off like this, print right now, and then just go ahead, move this over, and print again. That would be one really cheater way to do it. I always like to overlap a little bit of my artwork when I'm making my stencils, if I'm making this stencil right here, then when I make my second stencil, I would leave part of this artwork on that second stencil so that I can line them up perfectly when I'm going to, match them up. Or you can eyeball it. You don't have to do that. I just find it is an easier way to register. For this one, it actually looks like, if I make it just even a teeny bit smaller, which would be totally fine for my sign, it looks like I might be able to fit this all on one 8.5 by 11 sheet. So I can just copy this by going Control-C or by going to Edit, Copy, and then I'm just going to paste it, Control-V or Edit, Paste. And so all I'm missing right now is the W and the E right here, W-E-R, and the, she is a. I want that all to be on the stencil, or on the second stencil. So all I'm going to do actually is ungroup this by right-clicking and click Ungroup, and then I'll select this again and ungroup it, and I'll do the same here. And then I'm going to delete the part of my artwork that is already up on top, but I don't need another part of that stencil. And then here, what I'm going to do is actually break this up so I can actually fit this all on one 8.5 by 11 sheet. So this is kind of where I'm saying that every artwork is going to be different in how you treat it and how you print it. If you want a larger than 8.5 by 11 stencil, every piece of artwork is going to be treated differently. So now when I go to make this stencil, I'll be able to just stencil this on here, and then I'll be able to take this stencil and line up the she when I'm stenciling it, and then I'll be able to add the is a, and then I'll be able to take this and line it up right up with the W, and I'll be able to stencil on the ER. So I'm getting a stencil that's 13 inches wide, but I'm fitting it all on an 8.5 by 11 sheet. So I hope that helps. Like I said, all artwork is going to be different, and that's pretty much all there is to it. And then when I go to print, I am able to print right out of Gravit, this program. So if I go to my Canon printer, we have so many printers here at work. I always have to remember to select my Canon. Okay, so there's my Canon. There we go. So now I gotta select my Canon. And then I can go into Preferences. And of course I have my Ikonart preferences saved. But all I did was change to Photo Paper Pro Platinum. I use my custom print quality settings and make sure that's on as high as it can go, #1. I have my manual color and intensity selected, and then I just made sure my brightness was set to dark, my intensity all the way to dark, and my contrast all the way to high. So those are the print settings that I use for every single time I make an Ikonart stencil. And I use the Arthur Imaging inks in my Canon printer. They're super affordable. So that's that, and then I can go to print. So I'll print this, make a stencil, and then I'll film using it. So I wanted to make this quote, "In a field of roses, she is a wildflower," on my whole big sign here. You've probably seen me use this metal sign before. I've reused it a bunch of times. It's metal, and then I can just wash off my design between seasons. But it is bigger than 8.5 by 11. It's wider than 11. So the other day I posted a video showing how I actually broke up the artwork in Gravit to fit still on an 8.5 by 11 sheet. And all I did for that was I moved the end part of the artwork down onto its own artwork so that when I put it on my final sign, I'm able to use part of the artwork to line it up. So I'll print this and then I'll use this W to line up the ER here, and then I'll use the word she to line up the is a, so that I'm still getting a design that is bigger than 8.5 by 11, but it fit on an 8.5 by 11 sign or sheet. And then as far as the sign, I'm thinking that I want to try to print some wildflowers in the background here. And I'm gonna be doing greens. I think I'm gonna do light green for the flowers and then a dark green over the top. I'm gonna see what that looks like. And I'm just gonna be using my finger to paint this on. And I'm not gonna be washing out my stencil in between, so we'll see how this works. All right, so I'm just gonna take my Anita's acrylic ink and I'm just pushing my stencil down really well. The blue sticks really good to this metal kind of surface. And then I'm just going to add my paint. Oops. And use my finger to kind of paint it on. And the reason I'm using my finger is because I was going to do an ombre effect and I didn't grab my squeegee. But now that I'm thinking about it, I think I'm just going to do a solid green background with the darker green as the words over the top. Unless I decide to do the black words over the top, I'm not sure yet. Yeah, so let's see here. Okay, so that looks cute right there. And then I didn't trim my stencil enough. So since the paint is still wet, let's see, let's put the next one over here. I'm gonna lay my stencil down on there. And then I'm just gonna add a little bit more paint. Don't really need much, oops, way too much. And anyways, I'll just use my finger on there as well. Just making sure that I'm covering all the areas again. So I had to make sure this part of my stencil wasn't touching over here because this ink is still, or this paint is still wet over here, so I couldn't overlap them, which is fine. Definitely put too much paint on here. You could use a squeegee and just squeegee off that extra, but I don't have it. All right, perfect. And now I'm just gonna let this dry completely and then I'm gonna put the words over the top. Okay, now that that is dry, I washed and dried my stencil too while that was drying. I'm just gonna kind of eyeball where I want this design to be. About there. So I'm not pushing too hard over the areas that are already stenciled because I don't want the adhesive to lift up my paint. So for this part of the design, I am going to use a sponge brush just because I don't want to push too hard. So I'm just gonna try to kind of like glide it over the top so that I don't get bleed, but also I don't want, like I said, when I lift up my stencil, I'm hoping that the design that I already have painted on doesn't come up with the design. Usually if I'm doing a sign like this, I mix my paint with Coco's chalky powder to make my own chalk paste, and that is actually like makes it also a little bit more durable, I find. But I didn't do that with this one. I'm just doing straight acrylic paint with this. The first paint I used was the Anita's, and then I'm actually using the Ikonart that we have on our website for the second color here. I'm doing like a white and green spring kind of decor theme, which I'll show you at the end. Whoa. So almost done here. Just making sure that I'm getting it in all of the mesh openings, of course. And I'm working fairly quickly so that my paint doesn't dry in my mesh openings. And then I will just remove my stencil. So far, so good. Stuck a little bit too good to the metal in some spots here. But that looks super cute. So now again, I'll wait till this is completely dry, or I'll actually help it along with the heat gun a little bit, and then I'll do my second part. So I'm gonna go wash out the stencil. So whenever I wash out my stencil, I only wash the top side that has the paint on it. I never scrub or rub my adhesive side. That's just to protect it. And then I add my backer. Of course, I forgot to write the word back on here like always, but I can still kind of see my design as a little shadow on there, so I know what side to replace it back to. But you always want to replace it back to the same side of your clear sheet. You can also cut a little notch. That's what I usually do in the corner. That way you'll know as well. Or you can just use our release sheets that we sell on our website. They're like these white silicone sheets, so you could also use those. Okay, so then I'm just going to speed this up a little bit using my heat gun on the lowest heat. So it's just blowing air, it's not actually hot. So. And again, if I would mix my paint with chalky powder and make my own chalk paste, this would dry almost instantly. Chalk paste dries super fast, but because I didn't mix it, this is just straight acrylic paint, not mixed with anything. It takes a little bit longer to dry. And once it is dry to the touch, I'm ready to move on. So I'm going to take my next stencil down here, and I am just going to line up the W. So now I could eyeball it, of course, but I like to, especially when words are involved, have them line up exactly. So that is why I use the art from the other, the first stencil on the second stencil. That just helps with registration. We do have a blog post on our website with 4 different ways to, do registration when you're doing multiple stencils like this. So it'll just depend on your artwork, which one you would choose. I'm making a mess here. Okay. Just add a little paint, and I'm going to use my brush again. Easy as that. And I'll just repeat the process. I will wash my stencil, dry that, and then do the top stencil. All right, let's do our last piece. So just to repeat the process, take off my backer, of course, line up my word. Oh, got a little water on that stencil. My hands are wet from washing out my stencil. There we go. And then I just have to add a tiny bit of paint to my last words here. And that is, oh, crap. All there is to it. I did not let this paint dry enough, and you can see it lifted some of that. So once that stencil dries, I will go back in and touch that up. Frustrating. Okay, so I washed and dried my stencil. Forgot to put a notch in it last time. And I let this dry a little bit more. My impatience pulled up a little bit of paint because it wasn't really like dry when I put this on there last time. So the adhesive on the back of my stencil up here pulled off some of that paint. So I'm just gonna do a really quick touch up, which is a great thing about reusable stencils. I can just wash and dry it and touch it up. So I do want to just make sure it lines up pretty much exactly. Patience, patience, patience is not my strong suit at all, but this is a pretty easy touch up. I just need to get those two little spots really quick. So I'm just going to take a little bit of paint. That easy, no problem. And then when I lift up, perfect, all fixed. So that sign ended up turning out super cute. So let's see what it looks like on the wall with my other green and white decor. Okay, so there it is on the wall. I still obviously have to like Ikonart all of this other stuff, but it looks really cute. I'm loving the green and white together. It looks cute.